Alright, so these notes are going to go in your notebook. They're going to be titled Scientific Method, Notes. Okay, so these notes are to kind of help you review the steps of the scientific method. So remember that the first step is to ask questions or identify a problem. So when we do that, you think about, what do I want to find out? Maybe why something does what it does, how something does what it does, or what. You can, think about how something will affect something else. So this is your driving question or problem that is starting your experiment. Okay, so before you start, you need, after you have your question, you figured out, what direction you want to go in, you are going to gather information. This is where you're going to plan, observe, and research before you start your experiment. Okay, it is very, very important that you do that. So you want to think about, what do you already know? Okay, you can research your question. Your goal during this part is to become an expert on your topic. Okay, so after you have gathered your information, you know about your topic, you know the things to do, the things not to do, your next step is to identify your variables and make a hypothesis. So now you're ready to identify your variables and make a hypothesis. Well, what does that mean? This is where you're going to decide on the independent variable the control variables and dependent variable. So you figure that out first, okay? So once you figure that out, all right, your prediction is based on your research and observations. That's what makes it educated. Okay? So when you write your hypothesis, it will be an if, then, because statement. Remember, it is not personal. Okay? You will not put I think that. You're basically stating the facts. If a plant is placed in different amounts of sunlight, then the plant will grow the most in the room with the most sunlight, because plants need sunlight to grow. You're just stating the facts. It's very scientific, very specific. Okay? So after you have made your hypothesis and you have figured out what you're testing and how you're going to test it, because you have your variables set, you can then conduct your experiment. Okay? So you're going to conduct experiment. Alright, so you write procedure and follow. Alright, this is where you're going to observe and record data. All of this is in the same step. Okay? Alright, so you write procedure so that someone else can replicate your experiment. Alright, you're going to conduct or follow your procedure that you wrote. Oh, sorry, spelled that wrong. Procedure is Procedure. Okay. This is where you're going to test your hypothesis. Here we're going to record observations and measurements. This is where you are recording your data in a data table. Alright, so after we conduct our experiment, we've collected our data, okay, we are then, step 5, okay, the next step is going to be to analyze our data. Okay, we're going to analyze our data. This is where you take your data table and make a graph. We will talk more about this later. This is where you visualize your data. So a graph is a visual representation of your data. It helps you see that one number is higher than another. So you can see what the trend, or what happened. Alright, your last step is to make a conclusion. This is where you share your results. Most of the time, when someone looks at your experiment, they're going to be able to see the whole thing. They're going to see your hypothesis, they're going to see your data table and your graph, and then they're going to read your conclusion. It's a whole package, okay? So this is where you reflect. You look at your data, okay? When you reflect, you look and see what worked, what didn't work, what went wrong. Okay, so you're going to look to see if your data supports your hypothesis. or it fails to support your hypothesis. So does your data support, meaning does it prove your hypothesis correct? So you're going to have to go back and read your hypothesis to see if it actually makes sense. So if you said there was going to be more purple Skittles than red Skittles, and purple was actually the lowest number, you would say the data does not support the hypothesis because purple had the lowest number of Skittles. So you're looking at the data to see if it supports, okay? This is where you would write about any relationships in your data. So maybe with more time, you're going to use your graph, okay? So maybe your graph shows that over time things increased, or the longer something was being tested, the less it worked, okay? You're also going to ask more questions. Most experiments are going to lead to another experiment. Okay, so your conclusion kind of ties it all together. It's also like your summary. Okay, it's like a recap. All right, and that is it for the scientific method.